he was able to hone and create the best possible policy by integrating the critics for both of them. So the rhetorical differences with the affirmative create better education. They also are necessary for negative flexibility, necessary to make contradictions, to test the for multiple biases of downside bias, because they have to choose to framing the maiden has the first last speech, which means unfair or any other possibility, which is something they haven't answered always because of the bias in made reasonability. If our man destroyed the possibility from this debate, you shouldn't vote in it because there wasn't a lot of time investment on this. The I6 evidence doesn't matter, even if there's utilitarian framework will win that. There's a still inevitable value discussion of what we should value in a utilitarian framework will win that flows for the negative. Now the counterpoint, we're not going for no unique offense here, or reason the plan is good. Now the after debate. Our interpretation was that we get the right to challenge the ethics. The one you see, the affirmative only gets to weigh the case when they justify the ethical reasoning behind it. I think they bone this because they don't really answer this. There's both a fairness and an education claim that have been answered here. First, the fairness argument, they can get 98% of the one you see over a context that cannot link to anything. Negflex, because they conceded the ethics first and last speech, the ability to frame the debate. There's no impact to alternative frameworks. We should be able to test the effect from a plan-centered view rather than an ethical-centric view to determine whether another ethical system causes good or bad consequences, which we've done through the anthro critique, which means they need to justify anthropocentrism in order to win the round. Second, education. The Monterey evidence is that human-centric construction relies on the imagined distinction and direct reviews everything. They're presenting of a border for what we can and cannot evaluate, i.e. the plan text, destroys the ability to shape critical legislation and encourages hyper-conflated internal link change rather than the ethical destruction presented by the alternative, which means that they collapse all relevant forms of obstruction to the question of whether or not it's good or bad. So the rest of the debate begs the question of whether or not anthropocentrism is a good or bad framework. And even if we lose this, reject the alternative and just value this as a status quo wipeout argument. Now the rocks repeal. Now the anthropocentrism debate. Group this. What is it about humans that makes us superior to other forms of life? Are we smarter? Does that give Einstein the right to kill and torture other humans who will? Obviously not. So for so much smarter, we should be able to realize that there's lots of suffering going on, and the suffering isn't a priori bad thing. So the way you should evaluate utilitarianism is in a negative fashion. If things are suffering, if people are suffering, if things are being destroyed, then the project of life is a bad thing because there's no material. That's the only warrant for why things are good or bad to begin with. Because they also for pain or suffering, there's much less in terms of life forms or close to life forms like the cyclone or the virus that are destroyed as a result of human-centric. There's a lot more than the destruction that's created by humans themselves. So if you define life as the creation of organization from nothing to long reproduction, there is always going to be that is a creation and destruction which we should be able to acknowledge and be able to provide which way we do so in a way that's better. The permutation, they've continued a unique link to the plan. They said they've considered a unique link to the plan that is able to solve the system diplomats on planes that are constructed at the expense of animals and inorganic existence, and they mold it with research extraction that builds the buildings the diplomats go to that are able to create better governance policies. That's an explicit link. So the plan itself is clouded anthropocentrism. They normalize violence because all of the normalized violence that's used to create the plan by the destruction of animals and inorganic life is just made a common part of everyday existence without being discussed or attached to it. They haven't even noticed how their plan contributes to that or listen to it because they assume that there's no way it could apply to them. Now group the anthropocentrism, good back for the environment stuff here. The reason we destroy the environment is because the animals, non-human entities, are seen as expendable items to use. When you view an entity as only valuable for what it's used to you, is you're not able to care for it or provide the connectedness to it that causes you to cherish it. The fossil fuels, even if they're able to replace fossil fuels, they'll find other ways to hurt the environment. Species will still be trash for food and clothing. They've considered a masking link. Once you solve the problem like warming, you're able to justify and provide free reign to continue all the other threats because they go, hey look, I've solved warming, so that means that it's okay to continue trashing the environment in the other ways because it turned out okay the first time I did it. So the clothing and food that's used to create human consumption on an everyday basis will be continued with their ethic. Only destruction of the ethic, even if it requires the extinction of the human race, is necessary to solve the facts. The alternative, even if it doesn't create a united system uniquely, is able to catalyze this by allowing warming to happen and allowing a fermentation towards better things. Now they say that they read these bulbous cards that we define value as anthropocentric. First of all, the card says that it doesn't say that we cause anthropocentrism, it says we cause anthropomorphism because we think like a mountain and mountains aren't people. This is just a pejorative argument that doesn't say we cause more anthropocentrism. It doesn't also provide a warrant. If we are arguing that the distinction between different forms of life are arbitrary, it makes more sense to minimize suffering against other forms of things. If there's no distinction between biotic and abiotic life, which I think is an argument we're involved because they don't have a great answer to it. They say permutation to both first, even if we lose the alternative debate, we'll still win the wipeout stuff below because all life forms and abiotic and biotic life forms are inherently equal. However, the permutation still linked. The Zimmerman evidence says that when you contain any type of technology, extraction for animal over based on animal destruction, it erects new social domination. So even if you claim to perform some practices, you create insidious new ones. You need to allow the destruction of institutions like the things that warming would create in order to create the positive political action that catalyzes a better initiative toward do things. They said there's no reason why anthropocentrism is bad. I've obviously said that above. It causes the suffering of all non-human things and causes worse environmental destruction than the small internal links to solving a couple of countries like Egypt. Even if they're able to spur some, there's more environmental product will come. Now the wipeout debate. First of all, they've conceded these aliens argument. The Lee evidence says that even if humans have destroyed ancient Earth, there is a possibility and like probability of sentient animal or intelligent life elsewhere. So even if there's impossible to come back from environmental destruction here, it will be so elsewhere. Now the humans will destroy the environment, and they have first of all, there's no positive reason why humans are good for the rest of the universe. There's only only a risk that one of our arguments is true for how humans would destroy the entirety of the universe. So all sentient, non-sentient life, alien life, etc., all possibility of inorganic existence or coming from other possibilities is destroyed by them, which is a larger internal link, especially if you have a utilitarian and hack framework. Now, the collision stuff, their card is a straw man. Our wire evidence literally cites Rees, which is their author, and who says that power improvements would create a black hole capable of destroying the globe. Their Rees evidence that refers to status quo particle accelerators like CERN, that the status quo facilities will go beyond CERN to create more powerful accelerators than Rees. Their author, Rees, will create strange and quarks that will participate in them. They will bind to the strange and create an iodine-style chain reaction and make the entire universe melt away and disappear. Not going from the nanotech stuff, the SCI stuff, this is just a technical thing. They only read their card up until a mark, which is ambitious design. So read the card from that reading. None of the part of the card that read that the SCI was abandoned, even if the lower part of the card does. Let's see evidence from a professor at Bureau. It says that they're able to create the SCI is going to be materialized by the military in secret. That'll create a particle reaction that causes chain to destroy the universe.
Hey, did you start prep?
Yeah. How much time is left? Yeah, it's 1 minute or 59 seconds. Oh, yeah, it's a 30 minute. And where's this? This one takes it. You want the reply or something? Where does this make it? Oh. Okay, it's just going to be throw it. Okay, is anybody not ready?
Their argument is the worst kind of circularity. Their Bobert's evidence says, our Bobert's evidence says that assigning agency to the non-human world can only happen through human cognition, which means that even things like thinking like a mountain, or imagining the death of humanity, are human-centered activities insofar as that they interact with projections of the human mind. This erases responsibility for the human role, and for the human role, those process of destruction, because it allows us to subtract ourselves from our own cognitive processes, links all their links to their alternative means that engages in a whitewashing of the different processes of human destruction that are happening in the status quo. They've conceded our other piece of Bobert's evidence indicates they're unable to create a mindset shift, which means they can interact with a possibility of change. None of their framework arguments preclude discussion of the mechanisms of action. That's intrinsically tied to the question of value. They've conceded cost-benefit calculations and utilitarianism, which are based on consequentialism, which means the question of values is certainly important, but it can only be evaluated and understood with respect to mechanisms. They conceded that part of the debate when they conceded that the meta mechanism for evaluation was in the debate was consequentialism and cost-benefit analysis. That means that you have to decide whether or not their alternative is able to solve any of the harms arguments, able to actualize any of the values they talk about. It's not imagining the extinction of humanity doesn't solve any of those things. It means they have to win the wipeout debate in order to win any offense or uniqueness, because they have conceded that human destruction is happening now. They have not made a scenario-based argument for why there would be worse human destruction in the world of the planet. Even if it's true that some diplomats would have to build, there might have to be some planes built to fly diplomats over to Egypt, although they can presumably walk or swim, which is a possibility that they have not acknowledged could happen in the world of the permutations. That isn't part of the plan. In fact, I think I'll extend the permutation there to allow, which probably means they do those things, sorts of things. But even in a world where those types of things have to happen, they've conceded the argument warming literally leads to the destruction of the entire planet. The biosphere is destroyed. Their willingness to sacrifice the entire planet for aliens illustrates the circularity of their logic, because now we can discard the entire planet and just say that it's irrelevant because it might be able to kill off some humans. That's the same logic of sacrifice that they are criticizing us for. I think the permutation is probably able to, so they have functionally conceded the argument that there's worse forms of destruction and human-centered thinking that are happening in the status quo, which means we have a uniqueness argument that takes out most of their impact claims, especially given the my argument above about how their alternative doesn't solve warming, will lead to the destruction of the entire planet. We're the only ones who are able to resolve these problems. They say that we lead to other forms of destruction when the technology works. And now this is where I'm going to extend the permutation. It solves these whitewashing and co-option arguments. We would imagine the suicide of all of humanity and reconsider and develop a closer relationship with nature. They've conceded a piece of very 99 evidence indicates that we would lead to closer ecological relationship to nature, but we would still be able to engage in action where we're standing against humans. This is necessarily ethical. We are saying that we have to manipulate human action, not the action of the non-human environment. That's our intersubjectivity argument. Humans will make reference to other humans, which means it's justifiable for one human to constrain another from doing something that would destroy non-human life. This is an ethics argument that is internal to humanity itself, which means it's not humans first. It means that humans always have the ethical possibility of being able to act on other humans without acting unethically, which means we solve which means that the only action we take, which is to constrain other human beings, solves their link argument. Now they say we would manipulate nature, and we'd have to manipulate nature in order to build a technology which would intervene in the non-human world. This argument is, first of all, links to our May argument. They've conceded the argument that's necessarily fatalistic, abandons any possibility of value of life, which means even in a world where there is extinction within their extinction of non-human life or extinction of human life, killing, or even in a world where anything dies, it doesn't matter because there is literally no value of life. They've created a passive fatalism in which creative destruction of the cosmos is already enough for us, and there's no justification for intervention. Now, if that argument were true, there's a serious problem for them because there's no reason why the alternative itself and its introduction to this debate, discussion, knowledge production framework, any of those things are important, since already the creative destruction of the universe was sufficient, and otherwise it means that we have to take action to intervene into human intervention into the non-inner world, which is the second order type of action that their alternative takes, which proves the fact that the interventions necessarily have to happen, that we have to be able to constrain other humans from acting. That's what their speech acts within the debate are meant to do. I think that proves the circularity of their argument. Some kinds of intervention are inevitable. Otherwise, so that proves the argument that we can that we use. Proves the argument that their link that we would build a CSP reactor which kills the non-human world is asinine and pretty arbitrary. The Berry evidence sets a better course for ethics because it says we have to use cost and benefits more. We have to expand our cost-benefit analysis more broadly to include non-human life. But the argument that nothing is alive doesn't make any sense, and it makes ethics functionally impossible. Constrains the possibility of action, leads to us becoming fatalistic, provides the possibility of no value for any kind of life at all within their framework. Now the wipeout part of the debate. I think this Rees evidence that we read is a lot better than he's giving it credit for. Our evidence says that there have been a bunch of different super colliders. In fact, these processes happen naturally. Their fear of these processes happening as a result of humans is a fear of non-human processes, which probably links to their criticism. Furthermore, it's empirically denied. I don't care whether it's a straw man or he reads a straw man is probably better than any of the arguments he's making. And the people that they're reading from, like Greg Easterbrook, are not qualified to assess whether or not Rees decides one way or another, which is an author end. They've conceded. They've also conceded an author end to the other argument. Their authors, just professor of philosophy at Guelph University, which means which is in Wales, which means he's not qualified to speak to what U.S. internal political processes, particularly ones that he claims are secret government programs, which he knows nothing about. Furthermore, our evidence indicates that as the prospects for the energy being generated to create the SDI diminished, so did the program, which means the program diminished, which is the part that Patrick read to, which means that the program doesn't exist anymore. Furthermore, it's just factually true that the program doesn't exist. There's no evidence that it exists, and their card is from 96, where our card's from, 2007, 2008, 2008. Yeah. So.
Irreversible. Warming is irreversible.
Warming is irreversible, too. So that means the non-human life that's killed is, gone forever, pretty much. Yep.